Welcome along to the show and an ANZ Championship review that includes Janine Southby's reflections on the Steel's come-from-behind win over the Tactics, despite an injury to their star turn. Elsewhere, it was nothing short of a disaster for the Pulse, not just losing to finals rivals the Firebirds, but by such a margin any playoff hopes were extinguished. The Vixens continue on their winning way. The Magic's early season form is deserting them just at the wrong time, while the Mystics are starting to hit their stride, long after the horses bolted. Well, Janine, all the talk would have been last night about the loss of Janelle, but you proved once and for all you're not a one-woman team.
Yeah, look, it's disappointing for Janelle, and I know she'll be absolutely gutted, but I think the girls showing what we've known all along, that we do have options, and I'm really pleased for Tapaya particularly because she hasn't been on a lot. It's been a while since she's been out there, and particularly in the goal shoot role, she's only started there at the start of the season, which is a long time ago. So I think she showed what she's capable of, and for a player to come off the bench and play as well as she did, it shows a lot, talks a lot about her character and the prep work that she's been doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, and she came under pressure too because it was fairly early in the game, and the game position wasn't great either.
Yeah, and look, I guess there's no ideal time to come on, and if you've done the right prep and you've got the right mindset, you're fine, and I think Tapaya had done that.
Do you practice that much at drill? Because obviously you've got to cover for any player that might be injured.
Yeah, look, we try in our trainings to make sure that everybody is in the line at some stage during training so that they all know what it's like. But as much as training, you try and really hard to stimulate a gameplay. It's never the same as actually getting out there under the pressure with the crowd and the TV lights and everything else, going on. So I think I'm really pleased with the way Tapaya came on.
And also important, the other players step up too, and I thought Jodie did exactly that.
She did, and she needed to as a captain to really shoulder some of the load and make sure that Tapaya managed to get herself into the game. And I thought, Philippa Finch and at centre and Shannon both stepped up as well, and it changed the way they had to play the game. They couldn't just turn around and bomb it into Janelle as we've been doing most of the season. So I think from that perspective it added something different, and that forced the Tactics defence to think twice about what they were going to do to us.
And of course you had other illness with Wendy not being right, so you couldn't field your most experienced lineup.
Yeah, look, poor old Wendy's been ill most of last week, as most of her family have too. So, that was always a challenge, and I was pleased that when she came off the bench she didn't show too many signs of it, and she showed her experience and calmness, which is what we needed at that time.
When did you start to feel in control of the match?
I think after half-time I thought we had it there. I know the Tactics came back at us a number of times, but I didn't get that sense we were ever going to capitulate, and I think showed a lot of character.
And this is the first week you've actually been mathematically out of the competition because you hung on by the fingernails. Has it been any more difficult to motivate the girls?
No, they're professionals. They want to put a good performance out every time they go out there. So from that perspective, it hasn't been that hard. They wanted to put a really good performance out in Dunedin, and they want to do that this weekend against the Vixens in Invercargill.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge challenge, although I suppose they're just playing for home ground advantage, so they've got their own driver.
They have, and we've got to respect them, but I think it's about us, and it's a challenge that we want to overcome, and we want to finish the season on a high, and if we can do that, we'll be really pleased.
And they could take it a little bit lightly because they're on this great roll at the moment, and hoping to continue.
Look, I don't think they'll take us lightly. I suspect that they'll be out there to really prove that they're the number one team, and they'll want a strong performance going into the finals. So I know that it's going to be a really tough equation for us to overcome, but I have faith and belief in the girls that they can do that.
I suppose a bit of concern amongst New Zealand fans generally that we look like we've only got one team in the four now, and even that side is starting to falter a little bit at this end of the season.
It is a concern, and I guess that's something that we all have to go away and look at. But I think you've got to do credit to the teams that are in the top four, regardless of whether they're Australia, New Zealand. That they've shown that they've had consistency over the season, and that's what's got to get you there, and that's something that we've been aiming for, and we've only managed in the latter part of the season.
And there's been a few upsets throughout the year, but I suppose the better teams just have that depth of squad to push on at the crucial moments.
Yeah, there has been, and it's been an interesting season because some teams that a lot of people picked early, the Thunderbirds, haven't shown what they're capable of, and it just shows that if you get a couple of injuries, it can really derail your season. So, I think it's been a lot closer, and I don't think there's ever any team that you'd go into against another team saying, we're just going to actually walk all over the park on this team. I think most teams have respect for each other, and it's from that perspective, during the middle part of the season, it was quite interesting at times.
Just want to get your view on the potential changes. Lots of talk about more teams in the playoffs and extended competition. What's your feeling on what's been mooted?
Right at this moment where I'm sitting, I think it would be great because obviously we'd be in contention. But yeah, I think the challenge over the last few seasons is that quite early on some teams are out of contention, and that takes away a lot of the driver to keep you going. Everyone wants to go in there to win. That's why you start the competition. So if there's some more incentive to have more teams there, then I think it's great. I guess on the flip side of that, you could say does only having 10 teams in a competition warrant having 6 in the post-section play? Look, I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's time that you have a look at the format, and maybe it needs a bit of a change. It's been going for 7 years, so let's try something different.
It seems to be a resistance, maybe it's financial or otherwise, to have a full home and away series in a 10-team competition. It seems possible with double headers and that. Surely that's not far away.
I'd like to think so. I think it would be great to have that home and away. I think that would be the real gauge of where teams are at, and I think for us to grow, to be able to play 5 games in Australia every year, I think you'd see some real benefits of that, both in our competition but also internationally. So I'd like to think that that's on the way, but I know there's some challenges around timeframes with the international calendar and obviously the financial implications that brings too.
But you proved this year by getting through that barrier, winning in Australia. You just got to play them more, don't you? You
do, and I think it's just doing it. It's I don't think there's anything special or different over there. The courts are the same. We have different interpretations from an umpiring perspective, and the more we're exposed to it, the better we'll cope with it.
The other change that I'm excited about, I think many people are, is the potential of having a 2-point goal and just rewarding those people who shoot from afar.
Yeah, I think it changes the game up because, it's fair to say that the tall shooters have dominated in the last couple of seasons. So, if you've got some shooters that can put those 2-pointers in, it changes up. And having coached Fast 5 last year, it really flips on your head a defensive and attacking approach to the game. So I think it could bring some quite interesting changes to the game.
And that for the lesser teams, perhaps who've got a shooter like that, can keep them in the match and get them a chance of eroding a lead.
Absolutely, and I think it's got to be exciting and good for the game when you add these changes, and it's all about developing a skill set too.
Just looking into the future, we understand you're back. How certain is that? What can you say?
Look, it's just in talks at this stage.
Are you hoping to be back?
Oh, look, I'd love to come back. From a coaching perspective, I just feel I'm getting to grips with where it's at. It's a tough league, and it takes that couple of years to just really understand what you're dealing up against and the things that can trip you up along the way. And I look at programs that have been successful over the years, and it does take. It's not just a one-season wonder. You need a couple of years, and it's sort of good programs and successful coaches come when they've had that time to grow and develop and learn what it is that takes you to be able to compete and win at this level. I think, we certainly have to go back and have a really serious look at what we did and how we did things and how can we be better with, one, the resources we have, and two, the timeframes that we operate in, and certainly hard gameplay would be something that we really need to make sure we add into our program next year.
And in your consideration too is that you're there or thereabouts, aren't you? You might only be one win away from the semi-final, so the progress has been good.
I think it has been, and I know there's been criticism of lots of areas of our game at times over the season, but I think from where we've come from, what we've had to deal with, and some of the challenges and the injuries that we've had along the way, I think the girls have shown they've got heart, they've shown they're capable, and I think it's just that little bit extra we've got to look for now, and that's got to that only comes with the experience. And I think a lot of the younger ones are starting to really step up. They're putting pressure on people for positions on court, and that brings out the best in people.
Assuming no sequence of huge blowouts next weekend, these are the top 4 in the finals mix, with the last round determining hosting rights, with the Magic Firebirds match a likely rehearsal for the first of the knockouts. The Pulse will be ruing a slow start and occasional lapses you just can't afford at this level. The Steel and the Mystics will be the other New Zealand sides to reflect on what might have been with more consistency, having to settle for mid-table at best.